Welcome. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channels. We try to build this thing up. I said we were going to have 2 mock draft videos this week, one without trades, one with trades. I put the one out without trades earlier in the week. A couple of you were pissed off that I went offensive lineman round 2. That's fine. I get it to an extent. I do not think the offensive line was great last year for Green Bay. I think there are serious depth questions entering this year. So on and so forth. This mock draft we did includes trades, and it's nothing crazy. It's not like Madden where you can be in a franchise mode and force a trade. There are no video game trades here. All of them approved via the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator. So we're going to roll through it. Again, I'm not going to drag this out and drag it on. A mock draft for the Green Bay Packers that includes trades. And right out of the gates, we made a move. Green Bay's first selection, supposed to be at number 52 overall. I have them trading up to number 49 overall, doing business with a division rival. We've seen it before. The Packers conducting business with the Minnesota Vikings to move up 3 spots. Remember, the Packers traded up in the second round a few years ago with Minnesota to draft Christian Watson. In this trade, I have Green Bay moving from 52 to 49. The Packers also give up pick number 201, and they get back 234. So a real late pick later on. The Vikings move back 3 spots and move up 33 spots later on in the draft. And at number 49 overall, there was a reason I had the Packers moving up. I have them taking Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State. Now, if you follow along with some of the analysts and pundits and, quote-unquote experts, Chris Johnson has been skyrocketing up the charts the last few weeks and really since the combine and things of that nature. Very possible he's not on the board at 49. When I did this mock draft simulator, he was. And so I said, let's move up. Let's get the Packers a cornerback who, right out of the gates, can be a plug-and-play option, and you hope as he develops, year 2, year 3, can become a bona fide number 1 cornerback. And so I have general manager Brian Gutekunst sitting around long enough, waiting, and then moving up 3 spots with the Minnesota Vikings to snag Johnson. And with Johnson, the Packers are getting a versatile corner who's, like I said, he's shooting up the projections and popularity, becoming increasingly unlikely that he's available at number 52. He's available at 49 here. The Packers get a cornerback that can play on the inside, that can play on the outside, typically a type of versatility that makes the Packers gush. And the Packers typically don't draft cornerbacks that are shorter than 6 foot. Just go back, look in recent history. Johnson is a tick above that mark. He falls on the good side of it. He checks the box of frame size of the Packers prefer to draft at cornerback. He's a potential future number 1 corner. Green Bay gets a little bit aggressive, nothing crazy. I don't have them moving up from 52 into the first round, but 52 to 49 to get Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State. Now we moved to round 3, and I have another trade, but it's the Packers moving back a few slots, and they get on the phone or they get the call from some familiar voices down in Miami, which we are calling Green Bay South now, right? Jeff Hafley, the new head coach, John Eric Sullivan as the general manager, Malik Willis as the starting quarterback, all down in Miami. And in this trade, I have the Packers moving back from 84 to 87 in the 3rd round, and they collect a late-round pick at 227. Remember, Goody's entering this draft with 8 picks. He has said on the record he would love to exit the draft with more than 8, and that's typically how he's conducted business as the GM of the Packers year in and year out in the draft. He wants to accumulate as much quantity with as many picks as possible as he can. And so in this trade, the Vikings was a 2-for-2, and the Green Bay Packers give up some leverage later on by moving from 201 to 234 in that swap. In this one, they move back 3 spots in the 3rd round, so a round later, and they collect a late-round pick at 227. But at number 87 overall, and this might, I don't know if this will upset people, maybe not, I have Green Bay taking Ted Hurst, the wide receiver from Georgia State. So after they make this trade with Miami, they move back 3 spots, and they take the wide receiver out of Georgia State, Ted Hurst. It's a pre-draft visitor for Green Bay. One of the 30 pre-draft visits they used was on Ted Hurst. He has a 6'3" frame coupled with a 4.4-second 40-yard dash time. And it's got to leave the Packers salivating to a point that they know we can't pass up on this guy that we had in for a pre-draft visit as well. And Green Bay's maybe looking around the front office and the powers that be and say, We took a corner in round 2 to trade it up to do that in Chris Johnson. We got who we believe is going to be a stud at corner for us. Are there more pressing needs in round 3? We could double up at corner. We could go defensive line. You know, there's a lot of directions the Packers could go, but they opt to go wide receiver here because of all the traits and all the talent that they see with Ted Hurst. And you have to remember, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks are gone. Christian Watson and Jaden Reed currently entering the final year of their deals. Now, you would like to believe that one of, if not both of Christian Watson and Reed are going to get long-term extensions hammered out with Green Bay at some point, but there's no guarantee of that. And you also bring back your first-round pick, Matthew Golden, of course, your third-round pick, Savion Williams, who many want to see incorporated into this offense even more. And where I hesitated was last year Green Bay used a 1 and a 3 on those 2 wide receivers. Are they really going to use a 3 on another this year? Well, there's a lot of change at that position for Green Bay. And while there's still depth that we want to believe in, depending on how much you believe Matthew Golden will develop into a true number 1 or number 2 wide receiver, and I firmly believe that's the case. Behind that first group, it's like you brought in Sky Moore on a 1-year deal. He has the label of a wide receiver, but he's really being brought in to be your kick returner and your punt returner. He has less than 10 catches the last 2 years combined. Bo Melton's going to be back, but is he going to be more with the corners or the wide receivers this year? Who knows? So, and I mentioned Doubs and Wicks are both gone. And so I had them going Ted Hurst here, a 6'4 wide or a 6'3 wide receiver running a 4.4 second 40-yard dash at the combine. And I just think Green Bay could maybe use another jolt at wide receiver. Certainly you're going to keep Jordan Love happy if you keep, funneling in higher draft picks that are wide receivers and tight ends and running backs and offensive linemen. And Hurst gives them that. And who knows what his full potential is. But certainly when you look at his frame, his size, his speed, and you kind of couple that with what Green Bay typically targets at wide receiver, he fits the bill. So I have them going Ted Hurst at number 87 overall. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciative of all the support. We're doing a Packers mock draft. This one has trades involved. So I went corner at number 49 in a trade up with the Vikings to take Chris Johnson, Ted Hurst in a trade back 3 spots at number 87 overall, the wide receiver out of Georgia State. Round 4, I doubled up. I doubled up at cornerback. I took Will Lee III out of Texas A&M. Stood pat at 120 overall. Another pre-draft visit selection. I have the Packers doubling up at cornerback by taking Lee. I believe I mentioned this in the other mock draft video. When you talk about the importance and the value and how much stock you can put into these pre-draft visits, sometimes people overblow it and think like, oh, it's a certainty now the Packers are going to take this guy or that guy. And that's not the case, but typically, history has shown us these pre-draft visits are more than just a meet and greet. It's clearly prospects that the Packers have some varying level of interest in, and they want to find out more information. And last year, out of the 30 pre-draft visits that the Packers conducted with prospects, 5 of them ended up with the Packers once the draft came and went. 3 of them in the first 3 rounds, and Matthew Golden, Anthony Belton, and Savion Williams were all pre-draft visitors for Green Bay. And so Ted Hurst was a pre-draft visit. Will Lee, the cornerback I'm taking here in round 4, was a pre-draft visit for Green Bay. It's just worth monitoring who they bring in every year with these visits. Lee provides an instant depth option at minimum, and he has the upside of someone who could be a starting corner in due time. Stands at 6'1". That checks off a big box for Green Bay, given its history of cornerback selections. And Green Bay now goes from a situation where you're like, is Bo Melton your number 4 corner entering this year? How comfortable are you with that? Behind Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine and Benjamin St. Juste, who was brought over in free agency. Remember, Nate Hobbs is gone. Is Bo Melton your number 4 corner, and how comfortable are you with that if there's an injury to someone in the top 3? Now it's like, boom, Chris Johnson's a plug-and-play option. Will Lee in round 4 could just be a depth option as a rookie, but if he needs to be, tossed onto the field in some form or fashion, should feel a little bit comfortable about it. Round 5, number 160 overall. For the couple of people that were upset that I went offensive lineman round 2, and look, I take no offense to it. It's completely fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. You'll be happy to know I went corner, wide receiver, corner. The first 3 picks, round 5, we are going guard, Jeremiah Wright out of Auburn. And you read any draft profile on Jeremiah Wright, and almost everyone mentions that he plays with a mean streak, There's an aggression to his style of play. I like that he started all 24 games the past 2 seasons at guard for Auburn. There's a consistent string there of health tied in with this pick. And he dabbled a bit at left guard earlier in his career. And the Packers, of course, that's a welcome sight in Green Bay, having an offensive lineman with versatility. And I do believe the Packers still need to add depth on the offensive line. The starting 5 is in place, but behind the starting group that exists are plenty of unknowns. Wright would be an unknown as a 5th-round pick, and no selection is a guarantee, but Green Bay has a history of drafting offensive linemen later in the draft and developing them into studs. Wright could just be the latest. Zach Tom wasn't a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th-round pick for Green Bay. David Bakhtiari wasn't a 1st-round pick for Green Bay. Rasheed Walker, your starting left tackle the last 3 seasons, that was a 7th-round pick, right? Green Bay has a knack for drafting offensive linemen later on. Now, they take their shots as well. Jordan Morgan, your starting left tackle, presumably this year, was a 1st-round pick a couple seasons ago. You took Anthony Belton last year in the 2nd round, but Green Bay has a pretty damn good history of drafting linemen wherever in the draft and developing them into studs. You get Jeremiah Wright in the 5th round, primarily a right guard at Auburn, a little bit of left guard, see what you can develop out of him. Also in the 5th round, and this comes via a trade, because if you're in tune with where the Packers are picking, you heard me say Jeremiah Wright was at number 160 overall. Well, Green Bay's supposed to pick at 153 as well. I had them trading back from 153 to 164 with Jacksonville, and Green Bay gets 164 and 203, and they part ways with 153 and 236. So it's a 2-for-2, but Green Bay moves up later on to move back here. And at 164, I have them going running back with Kaytron Allen. I know they had Kalen Black, the running back out of Indiana, in for a pre-draft visit. There are whispers going around that Green Bay's enamored with Kalen Black, potentially as a day 3 pick in this draft at running back. I went Kaytron Allen in this mock draft simulator. I believe I did go Kalen Black in the mock draft video I did that had no trades. But I go Allen here, the running back out of Penn State. The trade with Jacksonville that I mentioned, where Green Bay moves back 11 spots. If Marshawn Lloyd can stay healthy, and that is such a massive if, the Packers have a solid 3 options at running back, with Josh Jacobs being the bell cow, Lloyd as the backup, and Chris Brooks, who was re-signed on a 2-year deal, as your number 3, sort of a situational back who's more used and more of a fit as a 3rd down back and a pass blocking option, because he's the best pass blocking running back Green Bay has on its roster. If Lloyd is banged up for a 3rd consecutive year because he's only played 1 game in 2 years due to injury, and all of a sudden Chris Brooks is your number 2, Chris Brooks is better suited, in my opinion, as a number 3 than a number 2, and Emmanuel Wilson kind of bridged that gap the last couple of years, but now he's off to Seattle. I just look at the running back room, and I'm like, and you can say this about almost any position, but when I'm looking specifically at the running back room, there are more valid questions to be had when it comes to health. Because if you can say, well, if this position group can stay healthy, we feel good about it. You can say that about corner, safety, linebacker, D-line, O-line, whatever. But with that running back room in Green Bay, Josh Jacobs was dinged up last year, got hurt his knee on the concrete slab at MetLife Stadium. Marshawn Lloyd's only played 1 game in 2 years. Emmanuel Wilson is now gone. And so I'm looking at a running back room where it's like, man, if one of those dominoes falls, it can put you behind the 8 ball pretty quickly, because Chris Brooks as your number 3 back, great. Chris Brooks as your number 2, playing the role of Emmanuel Wilson, filling in as a number 1 if something happened to Josh Jacobs, all of a sudden it looks a lot less, appealing to the eye. And so I have Green Bay taking Kaytron Allen. He kind of just is like a safety net in case there's injuries for 2026, and then maybe works his way into the rotation in 2027. Again, this is a 5th-round pick, number 164 overall. It's not quite to the point, I think, where it's like, let's just take a flyer on someone. Those are typically 7th-round picks. But this is a safety net in case Marshawn Lloyd isn't healthy again, in case Josh Jacobs gets dinged up and Chris Brooks has an elevated role. You get another running back in the room. You get another running back on the roster with Kaytron Allen at 164 overall. What do we got left? 4 picks here, 3 in the 7th, and this one in the 6th. At number 203 overall, this was more of a me pick, like someone that I've been intrigued with, following along with the draft process, knowing it would be a later round pick, a day 3 pick. It's Daquan Wright, the tight end out of Ole Miss. And the intrigue with Wright was too good to pass up for me in the 6th round here in this mock draft simulator. You're talking about a solid vertical threat in the Ole Miss Rebels passing game, needs a lot of work as a run blocker, and we know in Green Bay, it's a must at the tight end position if you want to see the field to be a run blocker. With Wright, the questions come with technique and come with sort of his motor. People questioning his drive in the run blocking department. You get him in the building, he gets to watch Tucker Kraft and how he conducts business. You can mold some of your game after watching Tucker Kraft. You also have 3 tight ends who are all on expiring deals. Now, the expectation is Tucker Kraft gets an extension worked out. Luke Musgrave, is it 50-50 at best that he gets an extension with Green Bay? If so, it certainly isn't going to break the bank. And then you have, Josh Wiley came back on a 1-year deal. And, John Fitzpatrick was in the mix last year, ruptured Achilles. He's still a free agent. Daquan Wright is sort of, hey, bring him in, developmental project. And if there's a lot of turnover at tight end next year, again, Tucker Kraft is not going anywhere. I know he's only got 1 year left on his deal. There's something that's going to be worked out. They're not letting Tucker Kraft leave in free agency next offseason. And he is a budding star at the tight end position. But we know Green Bay likes to use 2 tight end sets at a very high frequency, at a very high rate. Under Matt LaFleur, if you just go back and look, almost every single year, Green Bay is top 5, oftentimes top 3 in the NFL in percentage of snaps used with 2 tight ends on the field. You get Daquan Wright as a vertical threat, you work on his technique as a run blocker, and see what you can bring out of it. See what comes of it with Daquan Wright. But the frame is good. The vertical threat, awesome. As a 6th-round pick, you're getting to that point where it's like just taking a flyer on guys where you like a couple of things and see what becomes of it. And that's why I took Daquan Wright. All right, round 7, we have 3 picks. I'll bundle 2 together because they're both defensive linemen. At 227 overall, I had Green Bay taking Vincent Anthony Jr., edge rusher out of Duke. At number 234 overall, I took Jordan Vandenberg, a defensive lineman out of Georgia Tech. Now, let's start with Vincent Anthony Jr., the edge rusher out of Duke. Micah Parsons is going to miss at least the first couple of games of the regular season. Rashawn Gary's a Dallas Cowboy. Kingsley Enagbare is a Jet in New York. It's a prove-it year for Lucas Van Ness. 2 second-year players with Barron Sorrell and Colin Oliver in the mix. They should have ample opportunities, but what are they? We don't know. With all the moving parts, couple of big names, out the door in Rashawn Gary and Kingsley Enagbare, when you look at snap counts played over the last few years, why not add another option to the mix in Vincent Anthony Jr., edge rusher out of Duke? Jordan Vandenberg, rugby background, tremendous against the run the last 2 years, has an insane RAS score, which Green Bay covets, even though Goody will deny it to this day. It is possible Vandenberg goes undrafted, but with 3 7th-round picks at his disposal, we have Goody using one here on a player the Packers also brought in on a pre-draft visit who is a freakish athlete in Vandenberg. Defensive lineman out of Georgia Tech. Crazy RAS score, rugby background, really damn good against the run the last 2 years in the ACC playing for the Yellow Jackets. Packers used a pre-draft visit on him. Remember that name. Just circle that one for the 7th round. Jordan Vandenberg. Circle it, remember it, carve it into your mind. They brought him in for a visit, and when you think about who the Packers like to target and what gets them so enamored with a prospect, freakish athlete, high RAS score, that rugby background certainly doesn't hurt. You get someone who can clog some running lanes, was really good against the run. There's a lot of things going in the right direction that would make you think, man, if he gets to the 7th round, and in my simulator here I have Green Bay with 3 7th-round picks, why not take one on a guy you brought in for a top 30 visit? And finally, at number 255 overall, round 7, I have the Packers taking Baron Morton, the quarterback out of Texas Tech. Malik Willis is gone. What the Packers will do at backup quarterback is still in flux. We don't know, right? Desmond Ridder, Kyle McCord are currently on the roster. There's no clarity on how those things will shake out. Will Green Bay carry 3 quarterbacks on the active roster? Or what about 2 on the active roster, and then you have Baron Morton on the practice squad? Maybe that seems most likely. Why did I pick Baron Morton over a couple other quarterbacks on the board? Simply put, Packers also brought in Morton for a pre-draft visit, so that was the common denominator that brought it to me, where I was like, let's just go Baron Morton with the last pick, 255 overall. All right, recapping quickly, I have the Packers trading up round 2 in this mock draft simulator version with trades. They move from 52 to 49. and they get Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State. Round 3, I have them moving 3 spots back to number 87 overall, collecting a 7th-round selection. In the process, they take Ted Hurst, the wide receiver out of Georgia State. Round 4, it's Will Lee, the cornerback out of A&M. 2 5th-round picks, Jeremiah Wright, the guard out of Auburn, Katron Allen, the running back out of Penn State. Round 6, 1 pick, Daquan Wright, the tight end out of Ole Miss, and we have 3 7th-round selections. Vincent Anthony Jr., the edge rusher out of Duke, Jordan Vandenberg, the defensive lineman out of Georgia Tech, and Baron Morton, the quarterback out of Texas Tech. Whew. All right, let me know what you guys and gals think. Every opinion is welcomed. Just let me know what you think about this one. Mock draft for the Packers with trades involved. Always appreciative for all the support. Click the subscribe button. Takes 2 seconds to do so. Costs you nothing and helps me a lot as I build up the channel. We'll see what the Packers do, and we'll see you next time.